first time I've used a Mac for longer than 30 seconds in ever. So plugging dongles and things in and not the screen not like exploding and creating loads of extended displays is very, very strange. As you can probably tell by the accent, I'm a friend of David's. I'm another one of the directors at Farset Labs, so that's why we've got the nice, pretty master slide that we put together about 500 meters from here whenever we were driving in this morning. I had a completely different talk planned that was basically too similar but funnier than David's. That was basically a photo gallery of all of the shit that's happened in Farset over the past 6 years. But as we were driving in, Hackaday is about projects, Hackaday is about building things, and yes, having a retrospective on the trials and tribulations of setting up and running a hackerspace is one thing, but why not look forward to a new project that we're trying to do? And one of the projects that's been close to my heart for the past, well, couple of weeks, is this idea of socially acceptable computing. So, tiny bit of background on me. Originally telecoms engineer, somehow drifted into marine autonomy, then fell into data science using empathic technology. Now currently doing data science and cybersecurity. Accidentally started a hackerspace with this man. Teacher of coder dojos, code clubs, school outreach, all that stuff. We are constantly underfunded because we're basically no money, self-money, or membership dues. Hands up who does stuff like that, the coder dojos, the code clubs, who does education, who goes out and does workshops, who does classes, right? Okay, so I'm looking at that, that's maybe about 60, 80%. Problems whenever you are a zero-funded organization trying to run stuff like that, and you're trying to get members of the public or members of the community in from different places, from different walks of life. Not everybody has a laptop. Not everybody is carrying their laptop all the time or feels comfortable carrying it all the time. Not everyone has the same software, OS, licensing, or anything like that. Not all, sorry? Exactly, we don't always have the right dongles. I mean, you know, can you imagine if we had everybody here had the same laptop? This would have been not a problem. Not all organizations and clubs, so even we're talking about community organizations, you know, the big funded bodies that actually do real good in the world and in the communities, servicing the vulnerable and all that stuff. They don't always have the funds to run the courses and clubs that they want to do because they can't all afford to just build out a room into a computer lab that they use once a week. Computer rental is a joke. Running big, regular, recurring workshops on Pies has been a massive pain in the ass whenever we're trying to do loads of different things. They work on Pi-specific projects, or if you are specifically doing things that are with particular hats or anything like that. But as general computing, software, design, fabrication, programming, whatever, they're just not up to snuff. What does that mean? That means that we end up accidentally, implicitly excluding people from the programs that we're trying to run. We have people from lower economic backgrounds that just can't get access to these resources that we're trying to give away for free, effectively. There's a massive time cost in the beginning of any workshop where you're sort of sitting there going, now, does everyone have Python installed? No, hold on, which version, 2 or 3? No, hold on, right, oh, you're on Windows, this works different, hold on. That then means that whenever you do have the big organizations that can run these large things, you end up with the resources, the experience, and the expertise basically being sucked into these because they're the ones that can run it, because they have the budget and the staff, and usually the coin goes up to hell. And one of the big things that started to impact me is that there's no structural improvement in community education. You're not actually going out and teaching community leaders how to teach. There are a finite number of technologists who are willing to give their time freely to community education. And we've kind of got two models with this. It's either we quit our day jobs and basically run around every school community group all the time, or we teach the community leaders how to do it and put together resource packs that they can use, that they understand, that they can bring into their own systems. So, the Phoenix Cunning Plan, it's a box. Everyone loves a box. Who's watching Silicon Valley? Woo. Yeah, right, okay, so this is the box one. So, idea is box of cheapish laptops, we're talking about 10-ish, standard operating system, standard image that's automatically wiped whenever it's restarted, standard, ideally free and open source software, also developing standard free and open source, or copyleft, educational resources based around these, where you're able to hand them out to different schools and work with schools to develop them. This is obviously very interesting from a Northern Ireland context, because one of the angles that I try and push whenever I'm talking to government about this is going. So everyone's aware of the whole Protestant Catholic thing in Northern Ireland. One of the things that I'd like to see is whenever you're able to take resources that were generated in one community and have them be taught in the other community with a nice little footnote that says this worksheet was generated by school X. In terms of bringing communities together, I think there's no better way of doing it. And obviously from a hardware perspective, we want these to be general machines for not just coding, but for electronics programming, but for design, for developing wearables, for web design, game design, but also for teaching web safety and information safety about how do you surf safely online. So we're not just looking at this from a kid's perspective. This is young adults, this is the elderly, this is basically anybody who needs to be brought into the computing sphere. And we want them to be drop-in, chargeable, and you basically just plug the thing and make it as easy as possible. Finishing cunning plan, vague. 3 general phases. First one is we get a box. Aimed initially at basically local dojos, local schools, then available to be lent to local community organizations on a sort of good faith basis so that we can start having that engagement, develop the resources in a sort of co-design perspective. And the fundamental aim for this is validating the technology, validating the loadout of the box, the arrangement of can we get all the chargers in a grid on the bottom that you can literally just drop them in? How do you do the image cycling? How do you do standardized updates? Can you do remote management? Can you do user management? Is it safe to do that? All this kind of stuff. And a secondary aim of, as I said, co-designing these resource packs. Then phase 2, scale that out to a load of organizations within sort of the Belfast metropolitan area. The idea there is to develop a network of these bases. So the idea is that if Farset's one's lent out to one organization, and then we can just refer to somebody else and say, right, have you tried going down to W5 or for the Fab Lab or something like that? And this stage is focused on trying to get collaboration and multiple buy-in from as many people as possible so that this kind of thing can be sustainable. We don't want this to be something that's owned by Farset. This is something that we might start, but we just want to get it up and going so that somebody else and everybody else can lift this along. And then phase 3 is basically go bigger. How big can we get this? Can we take this across the island? Can we take this over? And sorry for anyone who can't see, doing the Google Slides animations, it doesn't let you copy and paste animations, so I just gave up at this point, so sorry, there's no more drop downs. So yeah, further collaboration, but I'd also like to throw in that I want to see this expand not just in terms of the geography, but also in terms of the subject areas. So the same kind of arguments that I'm talking about here apply to electronics education, where everybody, RS, and other vendors are available, create these fantastic kits, but sometimes whenever you're looking at bulk buying, the educational materials don't necessarily match whenever you're going to the context of a school or a community group. They're aimed at an individual learning alone. So maybe we can look at something customized for that. So we're nearly there. How can you help? I want to know, does this already exist? I'm completely wasting my time because I'd rather not. Second question, is this insane? Is this completely missing the mark? Have I completely come at this the wrong way? And would this be useful for anyone else? Because yes, at some point we're going to need to develop a business case. Also, resource signposting in terms of this, I really don't like the idea of not invented here. I'd rather collaborate on as many people as possible to bring resources together so that we're not all wasting our time and we can go back to what we actually want to do. Would particularly like help with sort of the user account management if anyone's an expert. And if anyone has 10 grand lying around, give me a shout. There's also a link to this presentation, which then has a link to the project proposal, long form project proposal. So if anyone wants to throw in comments, that's open and commentable. And that's me. Thank you very much. So, well, how many questions do you think we have?
While Eowyn's getting set up, we'll take questions.
Should.
So I would like to confirm you're not insane.
Right, that's always a good start. In this specific regard, I'm not insane. That's
I hope. So we had the same problem at the Warsaw Hackerspace when we were running classes. We have kind of solved the problem, but in a different way. We had like a central server and a terminal server set up, but also with 10 chip ThinkPads.
Yeah.
And we kind of dropped it, but we would like to probably have this running again, so we can.
The funny thing is, on that, there's a project that was started as part of the Raspberry Jam, or Northern Ireland Raspberry Jam, that originated in Farset, has since moved on to bigger and better things. It does the, what's it called, the PyNet project. that does the Linux terminal server-based images for the Pi that has loads of lovely stuff on it. But as you say, it runs into the same problem where it requires a localized server. We literally want these boxes to be something that a amateur can walk in, grab a box, and go, let's take it away from teaching programming, but say we just want to get people onto Code Academy, which does its own teaching. Whoever's driving the laptops doesn't need to be an expert. It's pick up the box, set up the laptops, go, and that's where I think that's a big challenge.
This is the way we would have done it now, but in the past we had to use a central server because we didn't have hard drives and we were on like zero budget.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, well, I can probably help with user management.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So I think that the problems you mentioned are actually often also experienced by pretty large corporations like Oracle or Red Hat or whatever, because they do training and they have exactly the same problem. So if you market it right to them, they sit on cash basically. So
I have philosophical issues with that one.
They
That's fine.
Take from the rich and give the poor.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was Bolster, everyone. And after our next talk, we're going to invite Brian